All right. So the other document, there's one document that you would have downloaded as part of this class, and it's the DynaSCAPE to SketchUp step-by-step PDF. If you haven't downloaded it, it's in the downloads folder. This is a 5-page document that really is a sequential outline of the entire process we're going to use today. Very detailed. So in conjunction with the video, this is a detailed handout that, if you can go and use this process in essence to go from your DynaSCAPE file, so basically DynaSCAPE save and copy, cleaning up the DynaSCAPE file, and it leads you all the way through to actually extracting and exporting images from SketchUp once you have your model complete. So that's something that is specific for this class. By all means, please use it. So that's first and foremost. This class is going to be broken down into several parts. First and foremost, I'm going to go through and this is just all you have to do is observe. For the first 15-20 minutes, Tom, you already saw this. I'm going to go through the overall process very quickly, and then we're going to spend the rest of the class breaking down that process and then doing it ourselves. One of the things that's necessary for this class is having the current version of DynaSCAPE where it has the cleanup aspect of it. And the other thing is the Ruby script, and if you downloaded it, it's the dynascape.rbs. If you haven't installed it, I will show you how to install it. I'm assuming everyone here is using a PC. It's very, very simple to do that. We will go through that step as well. But I'm going to launch into the process in itself. So here I have my site plan, and I just want to make sure that there it goes. I can watch the attendee view, so I will pause sometimes to make sure everybody is on the same page. So it's a very simple site plan. This is something that I put together with Len Hordick from DynaSCAPE. As a typical example, it is a bit simplified in some of the aspects in it. But first and foremost is how this process works. You have to reorganize, or at least organize into to some extent the information in your DynaSCAPE file before you bring it into SketchUp. You don't need some of the information, and some of the information actually won't come into SketchUp very well to begin with. So to go through that process real quickly, and on the outline again, and I will read this out from the outline as we're doing this from that PDF, because it is telling you what you do and do not need. First and foremost, and I learned this the hard way when I first did this working at a landscape architecture office, I saved over the original project file when I was cleaning it up and really pissed off my project manager. So always save a copy of the file that you're going to work with before you actually make any alterations to it. So because you're going to alter it enough that you're going to be removing a significant amount of information. So I'm going to select the title block. I don't need that. I don't need any of my leaders. So I'm going to delete those as well. And that's the first step, really. You're going to remove all hatch patterns, you're going to remove all leaders, and you're going to remove all dimensions. And at that point, you're going to have to assess what is the information that you do want to remove as well. I am going to go through here and actually turn off. I'm not removing. I am going to turn off the perennials. I just have to get to them. And accessories. So I'll turn off, there's perennials, and then trees, shrubs, hit OK. The reason why I did that is just it's easier for me to work with this file in this capacity. But then I'm just simply going to remove all the hatch patterns. Okay. I'll then go back and turn my symbols back on. It would be great if there was, you can remember layer states. The other thing that you have to do and you have to remove are clusters. Clusters will come into SketchUp, but they're not effective for what we want to do. And I'll specifically go through all this process obviously in specific. So I removed those two clusters. What I'm going to end up doing is I'm going to go in there, I'm going to actually replace them with new individual plants. So all I did was remove the cluster, and in some ways, you know, the easiest way to do this is to just not use clusters in any file that you want to convert from SketchUp, from DynaSCAPE into SketchUp, and that way it saves you having to deal with this particular issue and having to redraft stuff. Okay, so that's pretty much all I really had to do to this particular DynaSCAPE file. Everything else that's on here, I'm going to keep and I'm going to use for my model. So I'm going to go to File, SketchUp, and I'm going to do Cleanup Drawing for Export. And this gives me, oh, my voice is okay. And this gives me the options to clean it up. And this is one of the things we talked about with DynaSCAPE when they were developing this particular plugin to work with SketchUp was, well, what information do you want to remove and what information don't you want into SketchUp? This does part of the process. You obviously have to go clean it up yourself. One of the things that I do suggest not checking is remove lines on building layer. It does work to have them all in there, and I use the building line work to actually draft my footprint for that, and it will come in cleanly into SketchUp. So I'm going to say Start Cleanup. It's going to ask me automatically to resave the file anyway. So it was something that me and Len talked about. I was like, you don't want people to save over your original files. So they are giving you the option. I am going to save over my file. That's okay for me. And then what DynaSCAPE is going to give you as a message is before exporting to SketchUp, it is recommended that you manually remove any text with leaders, dimensions, hatch patterns, title blocks, and raster images if you use them to trace. The other thing that I would add to that aspect of it is also that you're also going to remove information that you don't think you need. So do you need the survey information? That's up to you if you think that's something you want to bring into SketchUp. You really want to bring things that will define the vertical objects, which are going to be your symbols, and the flat work, which is any kind of hard surfacing or soft surfacing, are really what you want to bring into SketchUp, and I'm going to talk about that in a bit more detail. With that done, the next process is File, SketchUp, and I'm going to select Export to SketchUp Format, which is what it's automatically going to do is saying, cool, I will open this up for you automatically. I'm going to process this. And the reason why we included this into DynaSCAPE is because if you didn't have this option of converting the DynaSCAPE file directly into a SketchUp format, you would have to do it as a DWG. And the problem with DWGs is at that point you need to purchase the Pro version of SketchUp. So we streamline this entire process so people don't have to actually go and purchase SketchUp. Please don't tell that to the SketchUp developers that I'm saying that, because they won't be happy with me about that. But in that context, what's important to know is that you don't need to do that beyond what you have here. You can see that this process does take a little bit of time. That's okay. It is converting all the information that we want out of it. And what it's doing is very specific. It's converting the symbols into SketchUp components. It's also converting the DynaSCAPE layers into SketchUp layers and retaining all the information on those layers from DynaSCAPE to SketchUp. And again, just to show you while this is processing, this is one of the outlines for the class. I have 3 working outlines that I'm using, but I will break down this entire process for you today to show you, well, what does each one of these things mean? I just wanted to give you a quick overview first. So your export is completed. Would you like to open your exported file with SketchUp now? I'm going to click yes. And SketchUp will launch. It will take it a second, and we will see what we have in its place.
Daniel, this is Karen. Can I ask a quick question?
Absolutely.
There on your DynaSCAPE is a rectangle. What is that rectangle for?
We will talk about that. That big rectangle is my boundary of my site.
You need to put it in before you export it?
Yes, and we will talk about that. And you could see, if you can see my SketchUp model, there's the rectangle that you're referencing. And I'm putting it in as a site boundary so that when So let me continue with that. I will definitely answer it. It's a good question.
Okay.
So here's my DynaSCAPE now SketchUp model. And for all intents and purposes, what you're looking at right now is no longer a DynaSCAPE file. Everything in here is SketchUp. So what does that mean? One, all the edges are now useful for me in using in SketchUp. You can see my layers, accessories, base, building, cluster, deck, shrubs, trees, the walk and patio. So if I start turning the tree, I can turn off my tree layers. You can see they turn off. And I can turn off my shrub layers and my perennial layers and accessories. And what's left is my line work. And the line work that I have left is not a symbol. This is what's defining the flat work, or the area that I need to model the base for my SketchUp model. Everything else, the trees, the shrubs, the perennials, and the accessories, are all going to sit on top of the flat work that I create. Flat work, and I'm using as a general term here. I know flat work really typically refers to any kind of hard surface paving or concrete. When I'm referring to flat work base, I'm really talking about anything that's the horizontal control of the model. So that could be steps, it could be the building footprint, it could be the deck outline, it's obviously the pool, any of my planting beds, any of my paving, anything that's going to sit and defines the flat surface that I'm placing everything on. So that's the first step. I'm going to go turn off my perennials.
Daniel, I've never seen this layers box here. Where is that coming from? Is that something you have to...
Okay, we will get to that. So it's Windows. In SketchUp, it's Window, Layers.
Oh, okay.
So I'm going to do a couple of complicated things with this. All the line work that I have that's defining specific areas in this model are all on several different layers. So if you can see I'm turning off the various layers, and I like to have much more organized files in this. And what we're going to do is actually organize, because one of the primary things that you're all going to be doing is working with vegetation. In order to work with vegetation in SketchUp, you need to have a very organized model. And what I mean by organization, if you took my basics class, you know I was hammering this point, is using layers. If you're an intermediate SketchUp user, I'm hoping you're using layers. If you're new to the beginner stuff, you know I'm going to explain how layers work right now. But what we want to do with that particular instance is we want to reorganize the layers. So I'm going to select all the layers that are currently turned on. And again, don't worry if I'm going too fast. We're going to go through this process step by step after this. So I'm selecting all the layers except layer 0, which is my active layer. So all the layers I just selected is where all the edges, all the line work that came from DynaSCAPE, not the symbols, are situated. And I'm gonna put them on layer 0. So I'm gonna click on here. It says delete layer. I'm gonna click on that, and SketchUp gives me options. Delete the layer, because the layers have information on them, SketchUp's like, are you sure you really want to delete this information? You will always see this dialog box, so you don't have to worry of doing this wrong. And it gives me 3 options: move contents to default layer, move contents to current layer, and delete the contents. You don't want to delete the contents. You don't have to move the contents to the current layer. If you move the contents to the default layer, that will put it on layer 0, which is where we want it. I'm going to hit OK. It automatically did it, so I'll show you what that means. I can turn off the flat work. It's all on one cohesive layer. And you can also see that I still have my perennial shrubs and trees, which is perfect, which is what I want. And in that context, that's perfect because I'll be able to go replace them, and I have a lot more control over what I can do with my model in this particular instance. But we're not done yet. That's the first step once you're in SketchUp. So I'm going to turn off trees, shrubs, and perennials and accessories. And now we're going to use something called a plugin. Plugins in SketchUp are tools that are created by the SketchUp community to further enhance what SketchUp can do. I'm going to give you a quick example here of what that means. Because there's many Ruby scripts that you can use for SketchUp. This is a site called S-Mustard. I'm going to click on Products. These are all Ruby scripts. Custom tools, you don't need most of these, but they're custom tools that further enhance what you can do with SketchUp. In a lot of instances, what they really do is they either do something that SketchUp can't normally do, or they do something that SketchUp would normally take a long time to do, and they give you a shortcut in doing it. So one of the things that you got for this class, in particular for this class, was the DynaSCAPE.rbs. It's the one that's highlighted in this folder. I will show you, if you haven't installed it, has anybody not installed the Ruby script? Please let me know. If you didn't, you can download it from the download site for this class, so it should have came with that. I will show you how to all install that as part of this process. But just to let you know, .rbs or .rb extension is a Ruby script extension, and that all it is a tool. All you have to do is copy it and place it into one particular folder, and it activates. And the Ruby scripts, for the most part, are located under the plugins folder in SketchUp. If you don't have any Ruby scripts installed in your SketchUp, you won't actually have the ability, you won't see the menu called plugins. Okay, Corin, you don't have it. I've not installed, but download it. Perfect. Oh, do have it. Let's see else. Don't seem to have it. Let's see. I have not yet. Okay. If you don't have it, please go to the website where you downloaded the files for this class. Or if you did download the files for this class, just go through that folder. It would have been part of one of the things. Just go double check that you have it, because we are going to go install it.
I have it where it says DynaSCAPE RBS file, but when I click on it, it just says it doesn't appear to be a SketchUp model.
No, don't worry about that. You don't have to open it. It's going to actually be, we're going to install it someplace else. But as long as you have it, that's all you have to worry about.
Okay, cool.
Okay, so let's keep going. So what is this Ruby script used for? Well, traditionally in the past, if I want to create, and Tom, this one's for you, if I want to create surfaces for my model, I would have to take the line tool, and we are going to practice this today, and I'm going to start drawing over the line work. I'm not going to trace it. Basically what I'm doing is I'm telling SketchUp, hey, I need to have a face here. This is called healing faces in SketchUp. I'm not drawing new lines, not yet, but I am indicating to SketchUp, like, basically when I'm doing this process, SketchUp is going through what I'm doing and saying, hey, wait a minute, that should be a face. So all I'm really doing is going from the endpoint or any place on this line work to try to heal these faces. Now the problem is it doesn't always work, in particular with curves. You could see what I just did. I drew a line across, but it didn't actually heal all the faces. And this can be a very time-consuming process, not to mention a bit frustrating, to try to get all this line work to get all these faces. Well, why do you want faces? Well, I can start push-pulling them. You know, I'm going to start articulating my model this way, right? But I need faces to do that. And the only way I can get faces is if I sit there and take the line tool and do it. Well, several years ago, other people developed Ruby scripts to speed up this process. The plugin that we're using, I'm going to click on the plugins folder now. There's an area called DynaSCAPE Tools, and I'm going to select Cleanup. And this is the Ruby script that I was just showing to you. I'm going to click on that Ruby script. And what DynaSCAPE is doing, you can see at the bottom left, it already did it very quickly. It basically fixed the line work that I imported from DynaSCAPE, and at the same time created faces for it. Now this process is not always going to be perfect. Ideally what it should do is subdivide all these faces into their areas that they're supposed to be. So the pool is its own face. The concrete or the scoring or the paving is its own face. The planting bed or the lawn is its own face. Now the problem here is you can see when I select this, it's also selecting the planting bed here, which is a problem, and we're going to go through that dilemma today. Or in some instances, and I'm going to open up another SketchUp file and show you that in a second, when you run the Ruby script, it's not going to fill in all the faces, and you have to go and fix them yourself. And this is actually the most time-consuming part of this particular process, is actually trying to get them everything fixed. So how do I fix this? In this particular case, I'm just going to delete this face, and I'm going to go in there, and I'm going to go manually fix it, and tell SketchUp, go ahead, find where everything is. This is probably the hardest part of what we're going to do today, is trying to get the concept across of what is successfully working here, and it still isn't, because now if I click on this face, you can see that it's actually ruining the other faces that were working okay. So I'm going to see if I can fix that. And it's simply a matter of really telling SketchUp, like, hey, wait a minute, don't do that. This stuff is working for me correctly. And I know this might seem confusing at this particular moment, but again, we're going to go through 2 or 3 different examples of these today. I think I have 3 examples set up for you in which we'll fix everything. So you can see I have everything fixed. I have all my areas that are partitioned out correctly. And that leads me to my next step. My next step is to add color to this. So I'm going to use the paint bucket. And I'll start selecting colors. And you always want to put colors down first before you start extruding objects. I'll give the building footprint a white color. I'm going to use my wood textures and give my wood deck areas a wood texture. And I do have these files ready, so I'm actually going to go and show you the adjusted version of this so we can speed up this process and keep going, because I want to go through the details of how this works. So we'll give this a second to load. Okay, so you can see here, here's my file. You can see my layers. I've gone through, I've put colors down on all the areas, so my planting beds, my lawn, my concrete, my pool area, little bit of another planting bed, and then I start extruding everything. So I've extruded the steps on the deck. I've extruded the building, so I'm just modeling in SketchUp. This didn't take me very long to do. I created a pool and a pool surface, so there is a pool surface underneath here, and then the pool surface itself. I added some detail in for some of these little areas that are being articulated, these architectonic elements within the site plan, and I've actually pushed, pulled down, or extruded the planting beds themselves. So that's the next stage of what you're doing. Then, next part of this, I've added in component elements. So these are table and chair components, a pergola, another table and chair, and then we have additional accessories that we can put in here. All right, so what's next after that? Well, the next step after this is actually putting in the vegetation. And I might have to go back a step on here. Okay, so you can see that the vegetation in this model are all symbols that came in from DynaSCAPE. And I'm going to explain, especially for the beginners, you know, what a component is and why this is an important methodology. So when a symbol comes from DynaSCAPE into SketchUp, that symbol in particular, or any one of these, it becomes a component. A component is a repeated object within your model. So if you have multiple vegetation components or symbols like I do have in this model, you know, we can easily edit these symbols / components in one quick step and put in 3D vegetation for it. So I'm going to actually select this symbol. I'm going to right-click on it, and I'm going to say Edit Component. The other thing I can do to edit components is double-click on it, And right now, I am in something called the component instance. And we'll talk about the component instance and what that means and how that works. But all you have to do is, once I select the line work in the component instance, you can see that it's selecting all the components that are similar are also now selected. And what I can do with that is very useful in terms of what we're going to do for modeling. I'm going to open up my component browser. I am going to go to my vegetation components folder, which it says it doesn't exist, so we'll go to DynaSCAPE. I'm going to go pick a 3D tree or a 2D tree. And I'm going to insert it into the component instance. Because all the components are similar, once I inserted it into the first one, it inserted it into all of them, into all of the same versions. So what I end up doing is I go through and I do this process for all the vegetation. So all the vegetation gets replaced with 3D components. I am skipping a step when we want to talk about actually adding new layers to this. But this is really the basics and the basis for this process. So I'm going to open up my last file here that's part of my example. And again, you do have all these files except for the vegetation 2 folder. And you can see what this will end up looking like. You do, again, have all these as part of the tutorial files. Does anybody have any questions? No questions? Comments? Anything?
I don't know if this pertains to it, but one question I have in regards to component, and not so much the vegetation because they seem rather easy to insert, but other components like fence or anything like that, my question is, how do you know when you're at the correct elevation when you're placing that component in?
As far as if you're dragging it in there from your component browser?
Well, yeah, once it goes into the model and you start to place it in the place where you want it. Now, some things are easier to place, like I say, trees and shrubs.
Okay.
But the bottom of, let's say, a post, how do you know, is there an easy way to determine that you're on ground level in your model?
So, for example, I have some signs with posts here. I'll click on it and bring it into the model. If I zoom in on it, if the component was created correctly, you see how it says on face?
Okay.
You know, and the other way is I'm going to peek underneath the model and it's not poking through.
I've done that too.
Or I'll go look at the model and it's not hovering. So, but typically most of these components that you'll use should come into SketchUp correctly whenever you're using them.
Okay.
And even to scale on the trees? I mean,
you know, scaling is another matter. I mean, especially with vegetation, what I end up doing is I will scale them as needed based on what I'm doing. So they will come in at a particular scale. At that point, it's up to you if you want to scale it. And, you know, to give you an example of that, here I have this feather reed grass. Maybe they're not big enough. I want to scale them. I'm going to go into the component instance. I'm going to select it, and now I'm going to scale it.
You're going to pull it up. Okay.
And but what it's doing is it's scaling all of them.
Sure.
Which is what, you know, that way you're killing you're killing one bird with 2 birds with 1 stone. So you're not doing them individually.
Got it.
All right. Any more questions?
Daniel, one more. Why you just happened to hit on my second question, which was the scaling. Is there a way to put in exact dimensions of what you want your component to be?
Yes, sort of. So if I measure this feather reed, it is measuring, oh, my DynaSCAPE stuff. Hold on one second. View toolbars, measurements. Where is it? Okay. It's measuring at just under 3 feet. So if I hit the scale button and I'm going to push it upwards, I'm going to type in 3 feet. Didn't work. It should sometimes allow you, nope, that's bizarre. Yes, there are ways to scale this to a specific dimension. Typically what I'll end up doing though, because I don't do that often because it's not as reliable, I'll measure something, you know, so if I know that
That's what I've been doing.
if that's 8 feet, then I'll apply a scale factor to it. That's usually the easier way to do it.
Right.
You
Well,
can enter dimensions, but it's not necessarily going to be accurate.
Okay. All right. So
All right.
basically the question is no.
No, but you can play around with it, and that doesn't mean that people don't have a solution for that online.
Okay.
I've learned that if I've learned one thing about SketchUp is there's really a lot of different ways to do things. So no absolutes really. Okay, so let's break down this process and start with the obvious. And this is what I want everybody to do. Let me close my files here. I don't need all these open, and it's probably not good for me to have all these open while I'm trying to work and do a webinar anyway. So all of you should have this DynaSCAPE example. It's the small backyard full. I'd like you to all open it, and then what I'd like to do is to go through the process of cleaning it up with you. So I want to go and talk about what we're cleaning up so everybody's aware and we're all on the same page. So please have that. Please open the 01-small backyard full. And it should not have saved that. But it did. That's odd. I guess I did save it accidentally over it. Let me go get my own cleaned up version of this file, which I have here, thankfully. Okay. Hold on one second. I'm confusing myself here. Let me go and close that. There you go. Perfect. Okay. So, first and foremost, and again, we'll go through this part. This is the easy part. Cleaning up your DynaSCAPE file is easy. You're all DynaSCAPE users, I'm assuming. So this process should not be too difficult, but let's go through it anyway. First, you save a version of the copy that you want to change. You don't have to do that since you already downloaded this. The next thing I want everybody to do, and then I want you to type in the text box or tell me verbally when you're done, is I want you to remove all the hatch patterns, all the leaders, and replace the clusters. There's 2 sets of clusters in here. There might be a third. But go ahead and start doing that. And please ask me any questions. I only have site plan 3. You should have, when you downloaded your files from there, you should have additional folders. You also do have on the GoToMeeting panel, there should be an area called Materials. I can't show it to you because the GoTo panel is never visible, but you should be able to download all the files from here. So please double check that you have all the files for this class. They were zipped folders containing all the files for this class. So let me show you what they are. I did delete my zips, but 01 DynaSCAPE example, 00 vegetation components. In fact, I will go to the materials folder right now. It's going to make me log in again. Oh, damn it. Caps lock. Escape 2. And then we'll go here and materials, edit, and view attending material page. So the one that you're looking for, so Deidre, if you can look at the screen real quickly, these are the files for the class. 4 of these are zips, O2 cleanup examples, accessory components, vegetation components, and DynaSCAPE example. So download those and then you have to extract them. Okay, perfect. So what you want to do is right-click on those and do extract all. So the way that they would work, I will show you right here. Grok, escape, save. Yes. As I download it, And because I have so much stuff opened, it's actually going to take its time. So we'll give it a second to just get 12 megabytes downloaded. Okay. What you want to do is, this is a zipped file. You want to right-click on it and say Extract All. And just hit Extract. It might be a bit different for what you have. I'm going to do Copy and Replace. Yes. And then you should have that folder. Once you open that folder, you'll have access to these files. For Kelly, if you can do, Kelly, it's the same thing we did for basics. If you can have the DynaSCAPE screen next to the go-to training screen, so make them, scrunch them down so you can see both. Or for right now, what we're going to do is just go through the process of actually just cleaning up the DynaSCAPE file. So let's go ahead and do that. So first and foremost, I'm going to select the title block, and I will delete it. And next, I'm going to do a marquee, and I'm going to delete all my leaders out of the drawing.
Daniel, this is Karen. I have a question.
Sure, by all means, please.
What mode should you be in to do this?
What do you mean by mode?
Well, is it like all layers on or design mode or?
I'm in all layers on
Okay.
with what I have. The mode that gives you the most access to getting rid of the information you don't need. I mean, obviously for me, what I'm going to end up doing that might be easier, you can see as my screen's refreshing all the symbols on here, I'll turn off the vegetation and accessory symbols so I can access and see the hatch patterns better. That way when I start, the pan function in this version of DynaSCAPE, which I know is new, is great. The refresh leaves a lot to be desired. And hopefully it'll stop refreshing any second now.
Yeah.
There it goes. So I will use the edit active list and then go turn off the 3 accessories, perennials, trees and shrubs, and hit OK. And that way, one, the refresh is better for me, but on top of it, I can see the hatch patterns a lot clearer. And Deirdre, I just want to make sure, did you get everything that you needed? Okay, Corin, thank you.
Patrick's done.
Patrick, you're done. Excellent.
I'm done.
Yeah, I'm done. I'm done.
I'm finishing extracting. Okay, I'm going to wait for you to keep up. So this is what my file looks like now. I still have one more hatched area. Okay, the other thing about this, cleanup-wise, I was asked about this rectangle at the base. I'm going to delete it real quickly. Now, I've seen a lot of DynaSCAPE files and site plans. You only put the information on for what you need to create 2D drawings. Either you're going to create an illustrative or you're using it for design build drawings, your as-built drawings or whatever it might be. You're not going to create line work that you don't need, right? What you do need to do before you actually extract and replace and save this file for SketchUp is do 2 things. One, you want to make sure that all your areas are closed. Now, granted, most of us are using a lot of hatch patterns to define areas in our drawings. So if you're doing hatch patterns, more than likely you have a lot of closed boundary areas, right? But in this particular case, what I don't have is I might look at my drawing, and I'm going to open up another drawing here and show you the example. So give me 1 second. Let's go back to my class folder, and I will show you what I mean. Oh, so in this particular drawing, I'm going to start deleting some of the stuff I don't need. And again, and just one thing, you know, the question is why delete it if you can bring it into SketchUp? It will bring it into SketchUp if you don't delete it, and it'll cause you problems. But in this particular drawing, for example, there's a lot of areas that aren't closed off. The building is one example. So by importing that into SketchUp without actually having a closed building loop, I can't tell SketchUp to make a face out of it. The same with this boundary for this particular drawing. I do have the property lines on here, but once I delete them, I'm not sure that all my boundaries are closed. One of the most effective ways to do this for site models then, I'm going to go back to my other drawing. Oops, sorry, wrong one. Is to go and actually put a rectangle around the entire site. And that way I know for sure that my site base will have a complete and closed loop. And then the other thing is making sure if you do have a building, and by the way, I know most people are doing site design stuff for residential. Always put your building volume in there. If you have partial building, you know, go fill that in. Those are probably the two biggest areas you're going to run into. Then let's talk about a couple of other items that you need to just consider when cleaning it up. You know, I'm putting this on here as see, any non-relevant information, utilities, easement, property lines, you know, you're going to have to decide what that is. Do you need the property line? Maybe. The client might want to see that in the model so it's relative to what you're showing in 3D. Or not. Is it useful information that will actually help you model the site work and the site base? If it isn't, you know, then you should consider taking it out. But you're going to have to do that on a case-by-case basis. I know that when I do this process going from AutoCAD to SketchUp, which I do quite a bit, I'm getting files with XREFs, utilities, you know, there's layers, there's thousands of layers. And I can spend an hour or two cleaning up that file and extracting what the relevant information for me is. So that's something that just I want to emphasize. You have to have all these closed areas. You do need to make sure that, again, all that information isn't there. Deidre, how you doing? And is there anybody that's not, does anybody need me to repeat anything? Is there anybody not caught up with us where we are right now? Please text or verbally tell me.
Kelly, I'm not down to what you've got on your screen. I still have my plants in place. How do I turn off? I need to turn off the layer. Is that what it is?
No, you can keep, you're not deleting the plants, but if, I'll turn my vegetation back on right now. So give me 1 second. So my accessories, my perennials, my shrubs.
So I've done all of A and I've done B.
Okay.
What is relevant?
Oh no, you're fine then. If you've done all of A and you've done all of B, you're exactly where you should be.
Okay, good.
Could not find the file once I was opening into DynaSCAPE. Deidre, it should be once you extract it. It should be under O1 DynaSCAPE example, and you should have O1-small backyard full. So let me know if you could not find that. But I'm going to keep moving forward for this right now. Does anybody have any questions about information that should not, or what is to be retained in the DynaSCAPE file? Please ask now. And again, this is why I created the handout. It's obviously a detailed step-by-step. You know, we're on step 2, and it talks about what should remain, all relevant plant and accessory and amenity symbols, which is what I want to talk about next. So before we all go through the process of, well, actually, let's go ahead and do that. So what you want to do next is you want to do the 2-step process of cleaning this up. So you go to File, SketchUp, and select Cleanup Drawing for Export.
So we want to have remove lines on the building layer unchecked.
That's correct. Because
Okay,
what
can you say that again with a reason?
because it's actually removing building line information that you do need. What I've noticed is when I've had that checked, at least for what happened with me, is it deleted my building footprint outline and the way and there might be, I think Len put that in there in case people didn't want to bring any building information, if there's an excess amount of building information that you're using. But what will actually happen in the conversion process is that the building line work will actually become one very usable line. So I uncheck that for now. Again, that's going to have to be done on a case-by-case basis if you see that there's too much information coming in.
This is Kim. I have a quick question. You
Sure.
want us to leave our plants on before we clean up drawing for export?
Yes, you can turn all the plants back on. We don't have to worry about that particular part, but then you hit start for cleanup. And let me.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
We selected cleanup and we save it as a new version?
You can, absolutely. And it will prompt you to actually save it. And that's just a good habit to have. Okay. Okay, so everybody has, please let me know if you're stuck. Any questions so far? Please let me know.
Is there a reason you designed with trees with shadows and shrubs and perennials with...
Those are just the ones that I chose for this particular example. As long as it's a symbol, it doesn't matter. I know as far as how DynaSCAPE users work, everybody has their preference in what they like using. And I'm going to talk about the symbols to components in a second. And again, we have a good pace. We've been doing this for an hour. In another hour, we're going to take a break. But for right now, I'd like to keep going. But I just want to make sure that this part is clear. I know this is the easy part, really, and let me elaborate on that a little bit. I've done this process from AutoCAD and Vectorworks to SketchUp, and AutoCAD is terrible going from AutoCAD to SketchUp. It requires a lot of cleanup. You know, it requires a good amount to actually convert that AutoCAD file so it's not a mess when you bring it into SketchUp. Vectorworks has similarities to DynaSCAPE, which makes it easier to do. To date, I have not seen a program go from SketchUp as well as DynaSCAPE does. So because of the inherent organization with your DynaSCAPE files, symbols are automatically on layers. You know when you're drawing your base work, or you're drawing your deck, or you're drawing or placing your stones, whatever. You know everything is a known entity or quantity. So it does make a difference as far as how that works. So if you did that, then the next step I want you to do is SketchUp, File, SketchUp, Export to SketchUp format, and make sure when you hit that button, click on the Browse button, and make sure that you're saving it. It's going to save it for you automatically with a name if you don't hit on the Browse button, but make sure you're practicing good file management, and then go ahead and save it into that location. I'm going to call it Small Backyard 2. I have so many versions, I need to make sure I do it that way, and I will hit OK, and everybody should go ahead and do that and just watch the process. Okay, and you can see that this process does take a little bit of going. Once SketchUp starts doing it, I need to close my SketchUp files, and so they'll reopen. And again, the example files that you downloaded for this particular class do contain the sequences that I'm going through, so you can go and see it as you're doing it. if you get caught up in the process at all and are not sure. And just another note about this process, if you have really, really big site plans, the more information you have in the site plan, the longer the export to SketchUp will take. I did one test on a fairly large plan. It did take it about half an hour to do, so it's one of those things that you can actually get up, walk away, and then come back to it.
Dan?
Yes, sir.
Have you and Len talked about if there is any symbols we can use that are more, maybe less complex, like that have less, that might make, does that have anything to do with any of this cleanup? Like,
you got it. It's the complexity of the line work and the edges in the symbols in particular are what's taking up the longer amount of time. That's correct.
okay.
And the thing is, and that's one of the things Len and I did talk about, which is why I did in part use these symbols, just so people know that the process can take a little bit of time to export. If it was a simple circle for a tree, obviously not a leafy,
Right.
That's correct. And then Thomas is also pointing something out. You do want to use unique symbols for each plant type. Thank you for mentioning that. That's actually fairly important. So if you have 10 different shrub types, you want to use 10 different symbols for those shrub types. So you don't want to do a generic plan. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, because then you're lost then.
Yeah, that's correct. And this is taking a bit longer than it probably should on my end. So I do want to wait for it to open, and then we're going to pause and we're going to talk about the next part of this, and that is, so we've done part 1 and part 2, and it's a 12-step, 13-step program. So the next part about this we're doing now is processing the file. So we're file to SketchUp, cleaning up the drawing, and then once it opens in SketchUp, what does it actually do? So it's going to try to open this in SketchUp, and if it doesn't, I'm just going to go to my SketchUp file and do it manually, which I actually might go do anyway. It's annoying me that it's taking this long. Okay. All right. Okay. I did forget to remove the clusters. I was just doing it as an example. Since I already have all these files prepped, that makes it easier for me. And I think that my DynaSCAPE actually froze in the process. So not a perfect process by all means just yet. But I'm going to go and turn off DynaSCAPE through here. It won't let me. Okay, so here we have our SketchUp file. So Kelly, can you elaborate on that question? So Kelly noted it takes some practice going back and forth between DynaSCAPE and SketchUp.
Just the commands. You know, I've been practicing SketchUp and then forgetting how to do DynaSCAPE when I go back to it.
I understand that. Going between SketchUp and then Photoshop and then any CAD program, and I'm trying to use keystroke commands, and I really start fouling up everything that I'm doing. It definitely makes for some interesting crashes and freezes. So let's talk about components. Okay. I'm going to assume most of you, who here, please tell me verbally or type it out, who doesn't know what a SketchUp component is? Everybody knows? I'm ready in SketchUp, agreed. Anybody? Okay, I'm going to explain it anyway. So, I'm going to create a cube in SketchUp really quickly. I'm going to right-click on it, I'm going to say Make Component, and I'm going to say Cube. If you took my basics class, I went through this several times. I'm going to make copies of this cube. Okay, what this cube is identical to these symbols that came in from DynaSCAPE. The symbols that come in from DynaSCAPE are components. Now what a component is I double-clicked on that component, or I'm going to select the component and right-click and say Edit Component. And you can see that there's a dashed line around this component now. And this is something that's fairly important that we're all going to have to practice today, is going and editing a component. Once you start editing a component, I apologize, I'm going to take the next 5 or 10 minutes to explain this because it's fairly important. It's really integral to this process. Once I start making edits to this component, I edit all versions of that particular component. So let me do it another way. I'm going to make a circle in SketchUp. I'm going to offset it. I'm going to delete the faces. And in essence, what I've done, I'm going to make it a component. I'll right-click and say Make Component, Example 2D Tree, and hit Create. I'm going to copy it around. So it's no different than these cubes. So if I go and edit this tree component, and again, all I did was selected it, and then I double-clicked on it, or I can just double-click right on it, and I'm in something called the component instance. The component instance is really just referring to the fact that you're editing that particular object. You can't edit anything else in your model. I can't select anything else in my model. I can't do anything else in my model. I can just work within this component instance. If you don't understand that, please let me know. I definitely want to get this point across. So
this is Kim, so I have a quick question. So I can make a component and add it into my drawing, but I can't edit one in my drawing.
No, you can create one and add it into your drawing, and then you can edit it. So I mean,
edit it once it's there, right?
Once it's there. So I'm editing it. What I mean by being in let me explain that a little differently. So this is my cube component. You can see I've made edits to it. I'm going to right-click and say Edit Component. When I'm in the component instance, and let me emphasize what that is here, all these dashed lines, right, that indicates that I'm in the component instance, which means that there's another way of showing this. I'm just going to trick your screen a little. Notice how the rest of the model is getting faded. I can control how the components actually work. So I'm in my model space. I'm going to double click on this cube. I'm in the component model space. The rest of my model now gets faded back, and I can't interact with them. I can only work on this particular instance of information. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
Into the component instance.
Say that again, Kelly?
By double-clicking on it?
Yeah, you can easily enter a component instance by just double-clicking on it. So try that if you want. If you all have your files open, go to one of your symbols and double-click on it. And what you'll see is you are now in the component instance. And the component instance lets you edit this component. So what does that mean for vegetation symbols? I'm going to go and try and open up my DynaSCAPE again. Oh, look, it'll recover. No, abandon. Let's go to my other drawing. Components, hit open. Okay, so here I have several plants, boulders, car symbols. These are all DynaSCAPE components. I'm going to go do the same thing. I'm going to go and do, I'm going to export it to SketchUp. Hit save. I don't need to clean it up because there's nothing to really clean up. The only thing in here are the symbols. And again, I think it was Spencer that you mentioned. Yeah, you could see how it's trying to actually process the 12-foot diameter deciduous species tree and why it's taking it so long. So these do have the unfortunate benefit of having so much line work on them that it takes a while. I'm actually not going to wait for this to finish. I can actually cheat. I have all this stuff ready, which is the time saver part, so it'll open up. Okay, so here's here's that same file opened up in SketchUp. And let's talk about, again, these are all DynaSCAPE symbols. But the minute that it came into SketchUp, cube, it became a component like this cube. Exactly like this cube. So that means while I can edit this cube, and I know I'm being repetitive and I apologize, I can do the same thing to these components. Now, I'm not going to sit there and make a tree. That would be insane. I've tried to do that before. I've paid some of my time that I'm probably going to have to spend in purgatory trying to do that. But the reality is there's obviously a simpler way to do that. And that's using window components and using the component browser. I don't want you to do this. I just want you to watch because we're going to go through this part again sequentially. I just want to show you the process first and how this functions. So I'm going to go to my, I'm going to navigate to where I have my components for this particular class.
This is different than making it a symbol by right-clicking and going to reload.
You can do it that way. You can do it that way. I personally don't do it that way. The reason being is, here I have that. I'll do favorites. If you can do it, and what you're talking about is saying, okay, selecting it and then doing reload and then picking a vegetation, hitting open, and it automatically replaces it. That's one way of doing it. Absolutely. I've noticed some problems with doing it that way. What happens when you do it that way, sometimes it's going to shift it away from the axes depending on how the component was created. If I go into the component instance and then drag it in here, this lets me, I have a reference, right?
Yeah, right.
I know exactly where this belongs. Also, and here's another example of why I do it this way. Let's say I bring in this plant. That's not a good example. That's not a good example. Let me see if I can get a good example. Maybe that one. Nope. We'll do this one. I'm going to cheat here a little. Let's say it comes in. Let's say you did it with the reload and it came in and it wasn't the right size. Well, based off my symbol, I know what the size of the plant should be. This way, I can actually scale it back upwards or downwards to match what I know the symbol size is. So by doing it this way, yes, it is easier to reload it. By doing this edit method, you're actually providing a lot more control over what you're bringing in, and you don't have to figure that out later where you're like, wait, that doesn't look right. Does that make sense?
Yeah, reload's almost like a generic thing.
It is a generic thing versus going in there and actually replacing it in this capacity. Also, we're going to reorganize the layers for this file, and doing it this way allows you to actually make sure that your layers are still intact. So that's the reason why I do it this way. You know, it's the same thing for this. I can go in here. I'm going to go back and reload my accessories. Make that my favorite. You know, I can take this chair, I can insert it directly into the component instance. Again, look at the size of it. Is that the right size? Is it the right boundaries? That looks about correct to me. I delete the symbol, and you can start bringing in, and particularly for rock. So here's a great example. Look at the size of that rock and how big it is versus its actual size needs to be a lot smaller. So that's the first way you're going to populate your files. Okay, so any questions about how that works? Cool, can I keep going?
Yeah.
Okay, so everybody should have, they'll have this file open. What I want you to do is make sure you've saved it. And regardless of whether you've installed the Ruby script or not, I just want you to follow along. I want everybody to close this file. Save it, and then close it. And we'll come back to it. God, it's taken a long time to save that file. It shouldn't take it that long, actually. Okay.
Close the file or close SketchUp?
Close SketchUp. Okay, and let's talk about installing Ruby scripts. And we're going to spend some time working with the Ruby scripts here for right now. And this is the way that it functions. And just to let you know, hopefully I included that in this. If not, if I didn't, on the DynaSCAPE website it does talk about how to install Ruby scripts, but it's really simple for Windows. So I have my Ruby script. It's my DynaSCAPE.rbs. If you don't see that, please let me know. You should have downloaded it with these files. Okay? I'm going to copy it. So I'm just going to do right-click and copy it. Okay? Fair enough. That part's easy. Next, we have to install it. Unfortunately, the installation process for SketchUp is kind of, for Ruby scripts, is a little antiquated. For my understanding, and that I know this for sure, the next version of SketchUp is going to streamline the process of installing these tools. So you have to go to where SketchUp is installed. And it's installed depending on your version of Windows. If you're using a 32-bit version, it's going to be under Program Files. If you're using Windows 7 or Vista, it should be under Program Files 86. This is where all your files, all your programs are installed, including DynaSCAPE. You click on that. Then I go to Google. You should have a Google folder.
I am completely lost.
Okay, I can go back. So first and foremost, was that Kelly?
It's Kelly. I see my file for the DynaSCAPE Ruby.
Okay.
Whatever. Yeah. And where am I going?
Okay, so what you want to do is, so did you select it, right click and select copy?
I thought that I had downloaded it. Remember, we took it out of my downloads, put it into a file.
Yes.
I can't find it in my file now. I still see it in my downloads. So if I...
Here, let me see your screen real quickly.
Okay.
And it is Kelly's screen that I'm looking at, right?
That's correct.
Okay, so
Here's my DynaSCAPE. There, I thought I downloaded it into my file for working today.
I don't see it either. See if you can just drag it see if you can download that and bring it back in. So I think copy, download. No, just select the DynaSCAPE one.
Yeah.
And then do copy, download link.
Yes.
And then click on your folder on the right. Zoom and go and do right click and see if you have the option to paste. Oh no, not there. So go back into your destination folder right there.
Right here. And
click there and then right click and then no, it won't let you paste it. Do this. Go back up to that. Go to DynaSCAPE RBS. Right click on that. Say open containing folder. Okay. Okay, there it is. So right click on that and do copy. Okay, perfect. Now just follow what I do next. Okay. Show my screen. I'll just make sure my screen is loaded. Okay, perfect. So the next thing you're going to do is, this is where you install Ruby scripts. You want to go to your C drive, so your root C drive, and you want to find either your program files or your program files 86. It does depend on your operating system. If you're using Windows XP, it's going to be program files. I believe if you're using Windows Vista, hopefully you're not using Windows Vista, or if you're using Windows 7,
I list both. This is Kim. I list program files and I list program files x86.
So your Google SketchUp file is going to be in the program files x86. If you have program files x86, that's where the Google SketchUp file is.
So I'm in the Google file.
So hold on one second. And then go to Google. You want to go to Google. I'm assuming everyone's using Google SketchUp 8. If you're using Google SketchUp 7, select that one. Google SketchUp 8, find the folder that says plugins. And Deidre, you want to be able to download it. We're going to paste it into the program file, so you're not actually going to open the Ruby script. You're just going to copy and paste it. Does that make sense? Please let me know.
I have plugins or SDK plugins.
I have no idea what SDK plugins is. Oh no, you don't. I don't do SDK plugins. It's plugins.
Okay. Yep.
You open up, you double click on that, and then in the plugins folder you do right click, and you want to right click and say paste.
I already have DynaSCAPE.rbs in here.
Okay, if you have it, you can just skip this part. We just wanted to go through it.
Okay, no problem.
Go ahead.
Daniel, I'm in C program files /Google.
Okay.
But where am I supposed to put it?
So if you're in C program files Google, right?
Yes.
If you look at my screen, you have Google.
Yes.
Click on that. Do you see Google SketchUp?
I have no SketchUp here, which doesn't make sense.
Okay. Go back to.
Okay. Yes.
Do you have program files or program files 86?
Here I've got SketchUp 7 root.
Okay, and are you using SketchUp 7?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, so go to SketchUp 7 root.
Yes. Plugins.
Yes, and that's where it goes.
And I. Okay.
So you right click and then go to plugins folder, right click and hit paste.
Okay, I've got it.
Perfect. And believe me, that might be the second most painful thing we do today.
Okay.
And that's one of the things that the Google SketchUp folks need to know. Did you get? Okay, mine did not paste in. Did it ask you for? I was just going to ask you that. Did it ask you? Did it give you a warning and saying administrative use or anything like that, Deidre? Or it might have actually, it did. Do you have administrative privileges? Damn. You do. And it still didn't let you paste it in. I'm not sure how to, oh, no. I wonder why it would do that. Spencer says mine does that go to compatibility files. I'm not sure about how that would work.
Well,
And should I be able to open mine while I'm in here?
No. You don't want to open it. Okay.
Okay.
So once all of you have, once you have that installed, go open the SketchUp file again,
okay.
and go open the SketchUp file that we converted from DynaSCAPE into SketchUp.
Daniel, it's Kelly. I'm actually using Google SketchUp 8, and I've just put this into my SketchUp 7 root.
So you need to go find your Google SketchUp 8 root and do the same thing.
Okay.
So if you go back to your C drive,
Yes.
tell me if you find program files.
Yes, program files.
Do you have program files, and then below that do you have program files 86?
No.
Okay, so what you want to do, so click on program files, click on the Google folder.
Yes.
Okay, and do you see Google SketchUp 7 and Google SketchUp 8?
I have no Google SketchUp in my Google folder.
So double click on your Google folder.
Double click on my Google, yes.
And now what do you see?
I've got Common, Desktop Search Toolbar, Picasa 3, Crash Reports, Earth, and Updates.
You don't have Google SketchUp 7 or Google SketchUp 8 anywhere?
No. When I go back one, I'm under Program Files. I did find my,
Can you share your screen with me real quickly?
I found my, where did I find the SketchUp? I found it.
Here, can you do something for me?
Yeah.
Can you click on the button to make...
It's straight under the 7 was right in my C drive.
That's really odd.
And I can't find 8 anywhere.
Can you click on to turn this into a list view?
View.
Go over to the, yeah, right there. Perfect.
Okay.
And then click on Program Files.
On program file, double click or just?
Double click on that. And then click on Google. Wow, I've never seen that before. I didn't know that was possible. Huh.
Find the file.
Yeah, we might have to find it. Hit back. Go hit the back button again. You have Google SketchUp 8 on this computer?
I do. Yeah,
Oh,
right
wow.
here.
Yeah, you
Can you
do.
see my screen here?
Can you click on that? So click on that. Right click on it.
On my SketchUp 8?
Yes. Right click and select Properties. Perfect.
Properties, yes.
Okay. Huh. H users Kelly download SketchUp executable. Hit cancel. And you should have the ability to give keyboard and mouse control to me. And I'm sorry, folks, I just want to figure this out. This won't take us very long. In fact, Kelly, hold on one second. Let me get people going with the next part of this, and then we'll keep going. So hold on one second. Okay, so this is what I want you all to do. Okay. Let me go back to my class folder. Okay. Damn it. Yeah, Kelly, if you can go, well, I'm going to go help her do that. What I want you to do now, if you have your Ruby script installed, I want you to turn off, it's a three-step process. First, turn off all the trees, shrubs, perennials, and accessories. So what you have left is just this flat sight box.
And we do that under Layers?
Yes, so you go to Window, Window,
That's okay.
Layers, Window, Layers.
Oh, crap.
Uh-oh, that's not good. Did you get a bug splatter or a crash?
No, I forgot. I gotta go get rid of what do you call it? The concrete or whatever it is, texture. I gotta go back and do that.
Okay.
You
You can actually select it in SketchUp and delete it. So you don't have to go back and reprocess it. Just see if you can delete it from there. So Amanda, Amanda, you don't want to open the Ruby script once you pasted it into the plugins folder. Just go ahead and open up SketchUp. So let me emphasize that the Ruby script is not something that you're going to open. It's going to automatically be in SketchUp once you have it. So just go ahead and open up SketchUp again, and you should be okay if you pasted it in there. And then Kelly, I will definitely help you, and Deidre as well. Amanda, did that help? Perfect. Welcome.